I woke up early that chilly morning with the same routine I'd followed for years. The farm was quiet, almost too quiet, but I brushed off the feeling as nothing more than the calm before a long day's work. As I stepped outside, however, I noticed something off near the sheep pen. There were deep gouges in the wooden fence and the ground was disturbed, as if someone had been dragging something heavy across it. My heart began to pound a bit faster, but I convinced myself it was just a stray animal. Later that day, while checking on the flock, I made a horrifying discovery. Several of my prized sheep were dead, their bodies arranged in a strange circle. Blood was spattered in odd patterns around them, and crudely carved symbols were etched into the dirt nearby. It didn't look like an accident or the work of a wild predator. I could feel the chill of dread running down my spine as I knelt beside the fallen animals, trying to make sense of the scene. The markings, the careful placement of the bodies, it was as if someone had been performing a ritual. My hands trembled as I realized that an intruder had not only killed my sheep but had done so in a manner that looked disturbingly deliberate. I spent the rest of the afternoon inspecting the area. I found more evidence, scraps of cloth that didn't belong to any of my workers, footprints leading away from the pen, and even a small, dark object that I couldn't identify. I called my neighbor to see if he had seen anything unusual, but he claimed everything had been normal. The realization sank in slowly. Someone had come onto my property in the dead of night, slaughtered my sheep with a brutality that felt ritualistic, and then vanished without a trace. That evening, with my hands still shaking and my mind racing, I dialed the police. I reported the grisly scene in detail, my voice steady as I explained every unusual mark and footprint I'd found. The officers arrived quickly and combed through the area. They took photographs, dusted for fingerprints, and even collected samples of the strange substance mixed with the blood. I waited with a knot in my stomach as they examined every inch of the pasture, hoping for some sign of the culprit. But when their report came back, it was baffling. The evidence was there, the marks and footprints were clear, yet they couldn't find any trace of an intruder. No fingerprints that could be traced, no surveillance footage from nearby cameras, nothing that would point to who had done this. Days turned into weeks, and the incident slowly receded into an unsettling memory. I still walk past the pen with a guarded heart, every creak of the fence and rustle of the wind bringing me back to that grim day. Neighbors whispered about cults or secret societies, dark groups that might perform rituals for their own twisted purposes, yet nothing was ever proven. The police eventually closed the case, labeling it an unsolved act of vandalism and cruelty. But I know what I saw that morning, those symbols, that careful placement of the sheep's bodies, and the deliberate way in which the fence was torn open. It was more than random violence, it was a message written in blood on the pasture. Even now, when the sun sets and shadows stretch long across the fields, I can't help but glance over my shoulder. The memory of that dark ritual and the absence of any answers still haunts me. I'm left with a lingering question: why would someone come here, to my little patch of earth, to commit such a chilling act? Now before we start with next story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 2. I still get chills when I think about that night. I had left the farmhouse for a few hours to tend to some business in town, leaving my wife alone at home. The farmhouse is old but sturdy, a place we've called home for as long as I can remember. I trusted it to keep us safe, but that night, everything changed. Later that evening, while I was driving back, I received a frantic call from my wife. Her voice was trembling as she explained that someone had been trying to break in. I could hear the fear in her words, and my heart sank. According to her, she had been sitting in the living room watching a movie when she heard a noise at the back door. At first, she thought it was just the wind or a stray animal, but then she heard a low, deliberate sound that made her blood run cold. I stayed on the phone as she explained how she crept quietly to the kitchen to check. When she peered out the window, she saw a shadow moving near the door. Without panicking, she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. I could hear her steadying herself, her voice clear and calm despite the terror. She told the operator that there was an intruder and that she was hiding in the room, all while her hands shook as she clutched the phone. I remember sitting in the car on my way back, my mind racing with worry. I wished I could be there with her, but I trusted her judgment completely. Minutes felt like hours until the sound of approaching sirens reached our ears. The police arrived quickly, their flashing lights breaking the dark silence of the night. I pulled into the driveway and rushed inside to find my wife waiting, still holding the phone tightly, eyes wide but determined. The officers searched the house and the area around it. They found signs that someone had tampered with the back door lock, but no intruder was ever caught. My wife's calm and quick thinking had likely scared the intruder away. We later learned that the would-be criminal had been scouting the area for days, looking for an opportunity to break in. That night, as we sat together on the porch in the soft glow of the early morning light, I felt an immense mix of relief and pride. I was proud of my wife for staying strong and handling the situation so well. I learned that night that true courage sometimes comes when you least expect it, and that even in the darkest hours, a clear mind can make all the difference. Story 3. Some days, I like to take long walks around the farm to clear my head and enjoy the quiet of nature. I have always found peace among the fields and the open sky, but one afternoon, that peace was shattered. I set out on a crisp day with nothing more on my mind than the simple pleasure of the countryside. I strolled down a familiar dirt road, enjoying the sound of my boots on the earth and the distant call of a hawk overhead. As I walked past the grazing pastures, I noticed a group of people gathered in the distance. At first, I thought they were farm hands or neighbors coming by for a chat. But as I got closer, I realized something was very wrong. There were at least a dozen men, and they were not dressed like ordinary workers. Their faces were hard, and their eyes carried a dangerous look. I felt a prickle of fear run down my spine. I slowed my pace, trying to remain calm. I wondered what these men were doing so far from town, and why they were acting as if they were on a mission. As I drew near, I could hear them talking in low, urgent tones. Their words were hard to catch, but I sensed anger and menace in their voices. I tried to decide whether to turn back or sneak away, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. Before I could make up my mind, one of the men spotted me. In a flash, their chatter stopped, and I saw a few of them start moving in my direction. My heart hammered in my chest as I realized I might have stumbled into something dangerous. I took a deep breath and decided to keep walking, trying to act as if I belonged. But with every step, the group closed in a little more. I started to feel the reality of the situation. These were not ordinary passers-by, and I was alone out here. My mind raced with thoughts of what could happen. I reached for my phone, planning to call for help, but then I saw one of the men pull out a small weapon. The sight made my blood run cold, and I knew I had to get away. I began to run, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. The dirt road, once a source of calm, now felt like a path to danger. I dodged behind a large tractor and crouched down, trying to catch my breath while I watched the group pass by slowly. I wasn't sure if they had noticed me or if they were simply moving on to something else. After what felt like an eternity, I saw one of the men glance in my direction. I held my breath, frozen in place, until they finally moved away. Once I was sure I was not being followed, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I explained everything in a trembling voice, from the look on their faces to the way they had moved toward me. The operator told me to stay on the line and remain where I was, and soon, the sound of police sirens filled the air. I waited for what felt like hours until help arrived. Later, I learned that the group was involved in a series of threats in the area, and my quick call had helped prevent something much worse. That day, my peaceful walk turned into a nightmare I will never forget. I realized that danger can hide in the most unexpected places, even on the land I love so much. And while the fear still lingers in my mind, I now know that staying alert and trusting your instincts can be the difference between life and death.